Today, we're here to talk about another dollar movie, though I don't exactly think it's dollaristically made, shall we say. Proxima is a film starring Eva Green and Matt Dillon. Matt Dillon, I believe, is a brother or cousin, or just related to, I believe his name is Kevin Dillon. He was from Entourage. Not Matt Dillon, the other Dillon. But they're related somehow. You can see it in their facial structures, you can see it in their chins, you can see it in their nose, you can see it in their eyebrows, their foreheads. They are related in some shape or form. At least to me, they are. And of course, you all know who Eva Green is if you watch the 007 movies. She played Vesper Lund in Casino Royale, the first film to feature Daniel Craig in the rebooted 007 franchise. Proxima is a drama. I believe it's French-made, though you might just say it's Europeanistically made, considering that there are languages spoken in this film ranging from French to English to German to, I think, even Italian, and then there's Russian in there. And it involves the astronaut program Proxima. I believe this is a real program. If it is not, let's find out real quick. As it stands, it does not actually exist, though the film was shot in real training facilities, such as the European Space Agency and Cosmos and Star City and Baikonur Cosmodrome. These, I'm not exactly the biggest astronautic connoisseur. I'm not trained to learn all these terminologies. I'm not trained to know how all the training programs and regimens go to prepare you for a stay in the International Space Station. But it feels, at least to me, it feels like this film did their homework. They shot in real training locations, and the entire film is basically about someone preparing to go to space. They don't actually go to space, they're preparing to go to space, and it takes them months of training. They have to undergo stints of quarantine to make sure that there are no germs, there's no colds, there's no flu, or any types of things that could be considered contagious that they might carry onto this space station. Because this character is preparing to go to the International Space Station for a stint, maybe about a year, maybe two. I'm not exactly too sure the length of the stay, but they're preparing to go on this trip to the International Space Station. So they have to undergo lots of training to prepare themselves mentally, physically, all sorts of things in order to get ready to go to space. It's not just as simple as jumping in a spaceship and flying up into space like a lot of these other Hollywood action movies show you. They involve lengthy, rigorous, psychological, and all sorts of other types of training to prepare you physically, mentally, for this stay in space, because it could be very cramped, it could be very physically taxing on the body. There's a lot of exercise involved. Everybody up there on the space station has to exercise quite a bit to keep their muscles moving, because when you're in zero-G, you're not really using most of those muscles, and if you don't use them, they will atrophy, they will fade away, and you can't have that happen, because you will eventually return to gravity, and you need those muscles to at least be operational. So there's a lot of exercise involved. This person has to run 15 kilometers a day. There's a lot of weightlifting. There's a lot of underwater training. There's a lot of oxygen training. There's a lot of stuff, basically. They have to go through every single hypothetical problem that they might encounter in space. Someone who might go unconscious out there while working on a satellite or something, and they have to undergo all sorts of simulation training on all sorts of hypothetical scenarios in order to prepare themselves. And this film is basically entirely about that. And there is a subplot dramatically involving this character of Eva Green, who is the main character, who ranges between English, French, and Russian. You know, they know a lot of languages because they're trying to speak to people who know all these other languages, though the funny part is the people they talk to will switch into English quite a bit too. The Russian knows English, and then the Russian speaks Russian. She knows English, and she also speaks Russian. She also knows French. He knows English. He also knows Russian. He also knows French, and they speak to each other, and they just cycle between the languages, and it kind of gets confusing, and you're like, well, if you all know one single language, why not just all speak in that one single language? I don't know why they keep cycling between languages for no reason, but that's how they do it, I guess. It's fine, I guess. It's just kind of jarring and confusing why they would keep switching if all of them know the same languages. Either way, let's go to the dramatical subplot here. Ava Green is a mother of an 8-year-old child. I believe she's 8-year-old. She might be 6. She might be 8 when she comes back, but it's a young daughter. And her and her husband are separated now, ex-husband, so they have to maneuver how the child is going to be looked after, because normally she was the primary caregiver to this child, and now that she's been chosen to go to the International Space Station, this is one of her lifelong dreams and all that stuff, she has to learn, and her daughter has to learn to separate from one another. They have to learn to separate from one another. There's a lot of dramatic problems that she's very attached to her daughter. The daughter's very attached to her mother, and there's a lot of drama. They fight a lot. The daughter has to understand that she has to go to space. They're going to be separated for a long time. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. She has to be separated from the daughter for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time while she's undergoing training, because the daughter can't be allowed to go onto these facilities, Baikonur and all that stuff. She can't go to those places to be with her mother all the time, and they only have to have scheduled stays for a couple hours a day every few weeks, and then she's up in space, and then she's going to be off Earth. There's no way to just take a vacation and come back down, because that costs millions of dollars for a single trip. You have to stay up there until your stint is done, unless there's a major emergency, I guess. But so there's a lot of stuff that they have to prepare for. The daughter's going to be staying with her father. Luckily, the father's still around, and he is also trained in the astronomical field. I believe he's an astrophysicist. So the daughter stays with the father. She's going to learn to the father has to learn how to be a primary caregiver. The daughter has to learn how to live with her father as a primary caregiver. The cat has to learn how to acclimate to a new surrounding. There's a lot of stuff in here that is very deep and emotionally gut-wrenching when you're watching this, because it feels real. It feels raw. The emotions are raw and on display. These actors are excellent, especially Ava Green, and especially the daughter. They make it believable that they share a very tight bond, and that bond is slowly being ripped off, and you could tell how much damage it's doing to her and how distracting it could be when she's trying to train for being up in the International Space Station. And she has to learn to distance herself from that and keep her mind on the work, because if her mind isn't on the work, she could get the other astronauts in critical danger up there. So she has to, and not only the other astronauts, but herself as well, because up there it's pretty isolated. You can't really call for an ambulance if you get in trouble, so you gotta be up there in tip-top shape. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. It's really raw, man. And honestly, I could tell you that it deserves this fresh tomato thing here. Now, if you are not a fan of foreign films, if you're not a fan of films that are mostly in a different language, if you don't like reading subtitles, then Proxima is not going to be the film for you. While there is some English throughout the film, I would say it's less than a fourth of the film being in English. And then there's about a third of it in French, and then a third in English, a third in French, and a third in Russian. There's a lot of cycling through languages in here, and if you are not a fan of that, then you're probably not going to like Proxima, but that I would still encourage you to give it a try. Give it a try, take a look at it, read the subtitles if you need to. If you understand French, then more power to you. You'll understand more of the movie. If you understand Russian as well, then you'll understand the whole movie. I only understand some French. I understand none of Russians, but I picked up the movie perfectly fine, and it was a delightful watch. It is very emotional and it's very heart-wrenching at times. It's difficult to watch at times because the family distancing, the separation that has to happen, is very believable. These actors are excellent at what they do, and I would definitely say that it is very imaginative.